My name is Christian Carlson. I'm the Director of State and Local Government Sales for ESRI. I've been with ESRI for 18 years. It seems like just yesterday when I started with the organization, and I've done a whole variety of things for the company. I live in Charlotte, North Carolina, and work out of our regional office there. We have about 126 people in that office. And over the past 18 years, I've traveled all over the U.S. and some parts of Europe, talking to folks like yourself and learning what you do. And I really enjoy it. I don't think I ever have an engagement where I don't learn something new and take some new perspective back. So the way and let me tell you something, I stress about these events actually also, because I always worry that I'm going to deliver content that's not exactly what you want to hear. I try to, over the years, I've sort of figured out what I think works best, and sort of the approach that I like to take is to only say what I know, only say what I've experienced. I like to give context behind what we're doing as a company rather than just sort of dump technology on you or product information. So I do try to take that step back and speak from the perspective of context and what's going on. And so we'll just give it a shot, and hopefully you'll get some value out of this. But I'm super excited about the things that are going on right now in the industry. And we've been using this slide a lot. GIS is at a major turning point, but I would say it's been at a major turning point for a couple of years, and it's actually made a significant turn for all of us, and you've experienced it. More people know about spatial information, more people want to interact with maps. It's become a framework for communication, not just in government, but in all aspects of our lives. I bet all of you have some sort of smartphone, and on it there's a map somewhere, and you use them all the time. And the sort of the work that exposure to maps is really driving expectations and driving the pressures that are on you probably in your organization to deliver innovative and useful map products. Over the past couple of years, there's been just tremendous technology explosion, and I think all of us need to just be prepared for actually more of that going forward. It's a hockey stick sort of new capabilities and technology that's taking place. And that hockey stick is probably just going to get steeper over the next couple of years. On the good side of that is that things are a bit different, and we'll talk about this during the presentation, in that as those technology enhancements continue to sort of take off, these days you can actually just take advantage of those technology enhancements. It's not as much of a technical burden on you as the advances have been in the past. So one of the things I wanted to do is just share with you, a year ago, I would present and talk, and I would talk about this change and kind of where we were as a GIS profession, where we needed to go. Over the past year, it's been significant uptake of new capabilities, and I wanted to just give you kind of a rundown. I got 3 quick slides on it. I purposely chose solutions that are from other parts of the country. And you can blame John Godsagan at the state of Colorado if you want for that. I was with him last week in Utah, and he said, something I'd like to know is I'd like to learn what people are doing in other parts of the country. So I took his advice, and again, you can blame him if you don't like this idea. There are 3 major productivity areas that I've seen some tremendous enhancement in terms of real applications being deployed. And the first is in what I would call productivity through mobile workflows. So there's been this move, as everyone knows, people use devices. I've promised not to show the slide that shows how quickly phones were adopted versus TVs, and we all know that we use devices. So when we deploy technology today, it needs to be accessible on devices. That's tablets, it's mobile phones, that's what people use. In the past, these mobile environments were a domain in and of themselves. Technology enhancements have made it easier to deploy technology on these mobile devices without those mobile-specific sort of implementations. And so a couple examples that I think are really great, and one I wanted to share is a fire hydrant inspection solution that was deployed very quickly at the city of Raleigh, North Carolina. They had 28,000 fire hydrants. They deployed a mobile application to 12 inspectors. They did it on tablets. They quickly stood it up using a little collector app that we have, and they were able to complete their first digital permitting sort of inspection process that they've ever. It's always been on paper. It was the first time it was on digital. They managed to complete the project in 3 weeks. It was a pretty neat little implementation. Just to blast through these, a second major area of collaboration or productivity workflows is in this area of collaboration, both within organizations and between organizations. The advances of web GIS, which we'll talk about in a minute, and technologies have actually, for years in these groups, we've always talked about the need to reduce the barriers between organizations and within the state of ... or within the county of ... and between them. Today's technology just enables that. It just promotes it, and we're starting to see some really neat collaboration that we've never seen before. One that I really like is in Broward County, Florida. They have a series, like everywhere, they have these county parks that are all over the county, but the parks are actually managed by the municipalities, and they created a collaboration and sharing environment where each municipality can go out and collect facility information about each park, and then they just mash it up back to the master database, and it's all, again, done through a web-based collaboration effort that's just simple to use and to use on devices, and it's a pretty neat solution. It allows them to keep their data current and distribute the work required to collect that information. The last thing, which is great, and I thought about it as the mayor was speaking this morning, is just increased advances in how we leverage maps to tell stories and communicate information. This is really powerful, and this is huge. I mean, it's a major aspect of geographic information systems in government and in the news media today. Not just producing maps, but producing maps in a way that actually convey a story. And it doesn't have to be after an emergency. It can be at any time. It could be, you see on the right-hand side here, you'll see these story maps, what we call story maps. And there's several of them that are just, hey, look, here's a historic home tour for our community. You easily, quickly throw these apps up, throw them together, a historic home tour, a green tour. The communication department in my town at the city of Charlotte has decided that story maps are the preferred communication for information that they want citizens to get. So they're producing story maps at a pretty rapid rate, and it's very neat. By the same token, the capability to create quick web maps and just embed them in a website, not spin up a web application that requires a server, but create an intelligent web map and embed it in your website. So there's something that's sort of neat about this, is that when you're creating applications that require heavy coding, they become projects, and you define what those projects are going to be, you spec them out, and you design them, you test them, you deploy them, and then they remain. Lots of information that we need to use is temporal. It's only relevant for this weekend. We're having a parade. The Democratic National Convention's coming into town. There was a flood. And so you need to quickly produce these maps that can communicate to the citizens and deploy them, and they may only be valid for a little while. And having that capability to quickly do those things is huge, and it's powerful. Just this morning, I got sent this story map, and I'll open it, and this is always like the scary part, right? When you try to actually show something. We'll see how this goes. But it's a story map for the flood that hit in Longmont. And this is just kind of a neat thing. So this is up and going, right? This is a story map, and it has a map. I'll tell you that knowing that I was going to come out here this week, when the floods hit, obviously I was tuned in to that situation and tried to understand how it was going to impact this trip, if this conference would be canceled or how that would go. Living on the East Coast and having the resources, the USA Today, the New York Times, the national news, CNN, as my sources of information, it was darn near impossible to get any context for what was going on with the floods. The news media just showed people on top of cars and houses washing away, but there was no way for me to stand back and go, where is that flooding? What's actually impacted? And so this is why I think maps are so cool, is because they actually can help us do that, and I always go the wrong way. But you can actually see where the activity happened, and you click on any of these numbers, it zooms in. I like to zoom out a little bit because I like to sort of get the context of where things are. But as I look at this, I can start to see that the activities that took place were happening absolutely right along the rivers that came out of the mountains. And you can tab through, I can close this down, and it'll highlight each one of the little areas that a photo was taken, and it'll show you a picture of what happened. And this could be anything. You can configure it to be the home tour, you can configure it to be a flooding story map, but you can make your way through and you can see, okay, street washed out, this is where that was, and here's where it was in the context of downtown Longmont, or even zooming out to sort of the broader picture of the entire area. So it's kind of neat. Quickly stood up and ready to go. Now I need to go back to my area. It's kind of neat, right? Kind of a neat way to kind of project information. So what has enabled this to happen are a lot of things, but I want to focus on three. It's cloud, this concept of web GIS, and this concept of configurable apps. These are three things that I think have made a huge impact on our industry. And I'm not going to spend a ton of time on the basics of cloud, but I'll tell you what I've absolutely learned and experienced from around the country is that we all take a different position on cloud and how cloud technology is used. And so the way that I like to think about it is on one end you have totally cloudy, in the middle you have partly cloudy, and on the end you have totally sunny, right? So if we think about it, how we embrace cloud is different in every organization, but in most cases, cloud is going to be leveraged as a hybrid. You're going to be in a hybrid environment where you have lots of on-premise technology and tools and data, and you leverage cloud where you need to. And you need to be able to make these decisions on how you use cloud in the way that fits your organization best. And some go full-on cloud, others back off and use this hybrid sort of model. Our objective as a technology company is to support all environments, hybrid and cloud. We're obviously investing heavily in cloud because it's for obvious reasons, we're investing heavy in cloud. It provides some huge advantages that we'll talk about coming up here in a few minutes, but we also realize the way that this sort of fits within your organization and how you have to embrace it and what that actually means. Another important thing to talk about, a new concept, is this concept of web GIS. You're going to hear that a lot. You'll read it, you'll hear it, it's web GIS. Some of you, how many people have heard web GIS, the concept of web GIS? Okay, good. How many people are confused by what it is before I say it's confusing, right? So the way I think about it, and I just do this, it might be my own limitations, but I just reduce things to the lowest common denominator, then I say I understand it and I'm good. Web GIS is just the evolution of, GIS is constantly, just like all technology, is going through a constant evolution. There are people developing things or taking advantage of existing technology, and the technology advances and it evolves and it moves and it gets better. When it has a struggle, then it gets better. And WebGIS is just a next step in the evolution. But it's basically, the idea here is where your GIS will become fully integrated with cloud services and capabilities, whether that be leveraging cloud infrastructure in your own organization, which we'll talk about in a few minutes, or whether it's leveraging services and software that are in the cloud and procured or used or licensed in a service-oriented model. Bottom line, what I really think is special about WebGIS is it makes the work that you do more discoverable, which is important. It makes it easier to use. It makes it easier to implement, and it makes it more sustainable for your organization. And those are the things that's the real benefits that actually drop out of WebGIS. In addition to one other thing, which is this notion of device-ready applications and support. As I mentioned at the beginning, most technology, if not all, needs to be available on the devices that we use. And WebGIS supports that as an inherent capability. So if I take those trends and I overlay them on what we're doing with our platform, and just allow me to do this just for a few minutes here, there are several aspects to the ArcGIS platform. I'm going to put them in the context of what cloud means, right? So let's just see if I can do this well for you. Number one, there are users out there of ArcGIS that are cloud only. They do not have desktop technology. They do not have server technology. They are simply using a SaaS product to do their work. It could be ArcGIS Online, it could be Community Analyst, it could be Business Analyst Online. But that's all they do. They connect to data and content in SaaS-based capabilities to create maps, save them, and share them. It's 100% cloud. There are others that are more traditional, the traditional GIS, the GIS professional, that leverage their desktop licenses, their mobile licenses, and their devices to connect into cloud services and data, right? So they're at their desktop, they're getting first look data from a premium content service, they're bringing it into their desktop and they're doing some analysis with it, right? They're using it for some purpose. A third is this notion of leveraging cloud infrastructure to host your server licenses or data. This could be to support an application full-time. It could be to spin up development licenses. It could be to protect against the concept of bursting, which is we've got a whatever type of application, and because we had an event, there's a burst of activity, and we need to be able to make sure that they can scale up and down and support the load that happens at one time or another. There are some organizations that cannot embrace cloud in the public cloud sort of space, and they need to bring everything inside their firewall. So in there we have a portal product that allows you to create the same groups, the same sharing, the same searching, the same cataloging, everything within your own firewall, and it's called Portal. So if you do that internal, then we have something for you. And all of this sort of fits together as one stack and one architecture that allows you to configure it and use it in a way that works for your organization. To add something to this, is this next piece is near and dear to my heart because I've been working on it for the past 3 years. And where this initiative started, in my mind, was several years ago living in the Southeast. Do you guys remember when Florida had those hurricanes that hit? There were like 3 or 4 all in one year. And for the life of me, I can't remember what year that was. But it was a year that, like, there was, I think it was 3 hurricanes hit in a row. Well, we have always deployed resources post-event to help out in the recovery effort. But every year that we've done this forever, for as long as I've known. We've always, a disaster happens, we dispatch people, they go, they work, they come back a couple weeks later. And what I've always asked them to do is, give me an after-action report. And the reason why I want the after-action report is because I want to understand where the technology fell down, where our users were struggling, just to understand what happened in that environment. And I might be a little slow, but after about the 3rd year of asking for that after-action report, it dawned on me that they were always the same. First thing we did was we had to figure out what data we were going to use and get consistent with data. But you know what? There was 1976 roads and 1998 roads and 2002 roads, and everybody was just using data. There were no consistent map products that were produced. So when the governor or the mayor came in and needed to see maps, and we had 4 people producing hard copy maps, because believe me, no matter how much the digital world works, when a disaster hits, they're all hunched over the hard copy maps, right? They print them out and they're working on them. So they would see different maps, like one of shelters, one of this, one of that, and they would all have a different base map and a different legend, and there was no consistency to it, right? The third thing was that there were map products and analyses that were done every year, but we had to hard code what those map products would be. So like it could be shelters, and it could be staging centers, and it could be curfew areas, but there wasn't a template that was in place that they had ready to go and ready to move. So what started to sort of percolate in my mind was this idea that there are common things that everybody does. They're common things. They're not different. This county does it, that county does it, this state agency does it, that state agency does it. They're common uses of the technology. So what can we do to support those common uses? And so we have started adding to the platform, in addition to the capabilities that you're all familiar with, this notion of solutions. And we've broken these solutions down into discrete sort of groups. Like we organize them based on domains. So if I go to the next slide, it makes it a little bit easier. We organize them into domains. So there'd be a set of solutions that work for people who do land records management, a property appraiser's office. There's a set of solutions or apps, I'm going to call them apps, that's a better word, for public safety, for police. There's a set of apps for fire, right? And these are configurable apps that you can gain access to for free on the Resource Center, download them, and just use, right? It's pretty neat stuff. It's really cool. And so we've worked with users through experience to sort of figure out what these things are. Some really key points is that they're organized into modules. They're all, you can extend them if you need to add capabilities to them, but you can configure them. They're all configurable, so you're not writing code, you're just changing the data, changing the colors, you're configuring them for your organization, which is a very distinct sort of way to look at it. They're freely available on the Resource Center, and there's a whole community that's built around them. So there's best practice documents, there's how to implement documents, there's feedback from the user community. And one of the things that I really like is this feedback loop that we had, where you can provide feedback about the apps. And what I've been really, it was kind of interesting to see how this would play out. Like So we're going to get a bunch of feedback. Are we going to respond? And the reality was we did. I mean, we've responded. We've changed a lot of the apps. And the best thing about it is that they're upgradable. They carry through release. So what are we really trying to support? Number one, we're trying to support a sustainable GIS implementation so that you're not writing custom code, and then when we release 10.2, you can't move that application to 10.2 without rewriting the code. The new apps are just upgraded and you can take advantage of them. And so that hopefully can free time for you all, the GIS professional, to focus on more complicated analytical capabilities that are available in the software that can provide new sets of value to the organization. Now, the underlying customizable platform is still there, and some organizations are going to want to do that, but these tools are available also. And so the way that we design them is to fit across the organization. So they're to fit all different types of users. So if you're an editor, we have some COTS tools, some apps, COTS apps that are designed specifically for folks that are editing parcel information or water utilities or public works information. We have apps that are for I don't like necessarily limit it to like executives, but people who need to have sort of dashboard access to things, right? So like they want to see, if it's a mayor, they have a mayor's dashboard, right? They're looking at crime, they're looking at public works, they're looking at the different aspects of their community and seeing, based on metrics that you've configured, what's going on in their community. And then citizens, how can we quickly deploy apps to citizens? And so this next slide is messy, understood, and it's hard to read. I'll drill into one. But like for local government, this is what we have today. So this is broken out: planning, land records, public safety, public works, elections, and then this catch-all one, which really just means stuff that everybody uses, but we just call it local government. But what's listed under them are apps. And so if you are a GIS manager or you work in a public safety organization and you buy the ArcGIS platform, you get access to these apps that can be deployed now. Right? So let me show you what this looks like in a graphic, but I like this better. So in land records, who here does land records work? Anybody? Okay, so you're going to tell me part of this is wrong. That's okay. This is just for concept. But if we were to break the land records business down into 5 areas, the actual land records mapping, so splitting and combining parcels when people buy it, the assessment process, the appraisal process, the collections process, and public access to that information. We just leave it at that. What are the GIS, what are the map products or the information products, for us what it matters is the mapping piece, that those parts of the organization would leverage and find value in? That's what we try to figure out, is what are the map products or the information products that each of those areas that those people use. And then these are integration points with permitting systems and CAMA systems. And so the decision has to become is, do we develop apps to support specific analysis that comes out of CAMA, or is that just the core package? And right now, you would just use the inherent capabilities of the platform for those 2 areas. And these other 5 areas, we built apps. And so if you look at the apps that we have to support land records, when you buy ArcGIS platform and you implement it in a land records organization, these are the apps that you have access to. So you can turn those on and leverage them within your organization. There's a couple of things that are really cool about this that I think. Number one is having access to the apps. See if you can follow me on this. This isn't something that was not understood beforehand, and I have learned it, is that having access to these configurable apps has changed the cadence that GIS professionals engage with their organization. They can quickly deploy apps. Or, look at this, instead of waiting for someone to come to you, like I hear all the time, hey, so-and-so came, I don't know, whoever it might have been, and we need a polling place locator. What do I do, right? So instead of waiting for someone to come to you and be in a reactionary mode within your organization, you can peruse these apps and say, this is a valuable app for our organization, and you can be a solution provider to your organization by using them. It's kind of neat, right? It changes the dynamic from responding to driving in your organization. I think it's pretty neat. So this has been successful in the local government space. We've got about 175,000 apps that are in testing or deployment by local government organizations right now. And so just to, if I have a few seconds, there's a couple that are worth noting. I mentioned that these apps are configurable. I'm going to show you two examples of this. The first one is we have this app, and it's called a My Government Services app. And the way that it's designed and put on the Resource Center is that you hydrate it with your data, you enter an address, and at the bottom it has a ribbon on the screen. I'll show you a picture of it in a minute. And it says, here's when your trash gets picked up, here, all the different information you would need to know, like all your government services. That app can be completely reconfigured to do anything, but just use that same template. Pinellas County, Florida, used it as their hurricane emergency sort of dashboard. So you enter your address, it tells you where the staging, the predetermined staging centers are, the shelters are going to be, the evacuation routes that you would use. It's the same app, they just hydrated it with different information. Banff, Canada, I'm still waiting for a site visit up there. I haven't been able to pull one off, but Banff, Canada, they've got a one-guy shop up there who's just rocking and rolling through the apps and deploying them left and right, and it's pretty neat to see. And then locally, the city of Denver, semi-locally, the city of Denver is implementing the ArcGIS for Land Records solution there. Another example of something that's really special is the city of Naples. I don't know if you know where Naples is. It's in Florida. It's a city of 20,000 people. They had a one-person GIS group, one person. Over the past year and a half, he's deployed over 30 focused apps. And he has a map gallery that's up. You can go type in City of Naples GIS and find your way to the site. You'll see a bunch of apps up there. But he's deployed 30 really neat business-relevant apps, all using the templates. And so it's a one-person shot. So after many years, it seems like we just released our first set of apps to support state government. So we have a state government site. If you go to your favorite search engine and type in ArcGIS for local government or ArcGIS for state government, you'll see it pop up. You can go to the Resource Center and check it out. But we have a first batch of apps that have been released to support state government. There are apps on the local government resource center that can be repurposed for state government. And in fact, a couple of these were. So the Water Access Parks and Recreation Finder, those were pulled directly from the local government stack and just reconfigured to be state government. I'm going to advance a slide and then come back. So this Parks and Recreation Finder, so we released the ArcGIS for state government. We went live 2 weeks ago. With very little fanfare, it seems like. Today, South Carolina DHEC is just about to release a reconfiguration of that Parks and Rec Finder that is for recycling locations within the state. So you either enter your address or select one, and at the bottom, it has the ribbon. And let me tell you what this says. I'm losing my sight. I'm just totally losing my sight. It says different stuff up there that's important for recycling centers. Sorry. Location, what they do, that kind of thing, right? But the other apps that we have to support state are a permitting dashboard, a configurable permitting dashboard. So we're not a permitting company. We don't build those systems. But in those systems, there's always a map that shows status of permit, right? We build the dashboard to show status of permit. So our partners will ingest that and use that as the dashboard for their permitting overall solution. Or we have users that implement it on their own as part of their in-house development. There's a flood planning app that's out there. There's a public health tracking app. Something that I think is super neat and I really like, and we've got a couple of states interested and there's a couple of cities interested, is this whole notion of this executive dashboard. And that's a really lousy image of it, but let me explain what it is. It works on a tablet, and those colored boxes are what we call pods. And so that pod, so imagine if you're a governor, right? And you say, look, we want to be healthy, we want to be safe, we want to have strong economic vitality, whatever the criteria is that are the pillars of what you measure. How do you measure? We want to be smart, we want our education system to be good. What are the measures that you use to determine whether or not you're making good on those metrics? You can configure those pods with map products that demonstrate those, that visualize those metrics. And so the mayor or the governor or the director of public works or anybody can have those metrics on a tablet and have access to them. If he's going to a town meeting, if he just needs to know, you kind of get the picture. It's a really cool concept, and it's something that I hope takes off. Neat. So I mentioned to you, I actually called the developer. I work closely with the people who are developing these apps, and I called her this morning and I said, this is your first implementation. It's like the first dollar from your business. You should frame it, put it up in your office, a picture of the screen capture. But I'm really excited about it. I want to end with this notion around these apps is that what we're really trying to build is community here, right? It's really a community. I didn't really present it that way just now, but I wanted to close with it, where we have this resource center site that explains everything about how to implement these apps. It provides a feedback loop for you to provide feedback, and we have people watching and monitoring and doing stuff based on that feedback. We also make the code available on GitHub, so it's all open source, so to speak, on GitHub that you can use that code. And I firmly believe that over time it's just going to continue to be a valuable resource that really supports you and helps you advance GIS in your organization. So I'm super excited about it. So check it out, provide feedback, and I'm going to be here today, and you can give me your thoughts on it. But I think it's a tremendous move for all of us, I think. So, given that I had I was gonna stop there with the caveat that we've got several people here this week, and Governor Geringer is going to speak in a few minutes, and I really wanted to sort of set the stage for a conversation that takes place outside of this room. So don't hesitate to grab me or ask me any questions that you might have as I'm here today, because I really do want to get your feedback. And I encourage you to check some of these resources out and see where they fit for you. I should mention that we have on the docket future projects for things that we should support. And I wrote this down because I didn't include it in my presentation, but then when I heard you speak earlier today, I wanted to mention it. So some things that we do are apps. Other things are defined workflows. And two workflows that we are working on right now are how to aggregate statewide parcel information, like a workflow to support that would be COTS, and a way to aggregate statewide addressing information. And we're working on that now. We don't have anything released, but those are two projects because there are just a lot of states that are in the middle of that right now. So thank you very much. And that was a lot, but it's what I had to say today. So thank you very much, and I'll be around, and just grab me. Appreciate it. Thank you for the opportunity.